Is Cloud going to leave fingerprints on the content it produces? Well, it has already been doing so. Those M dashes, not this but that statement, have been giving us those clues anyway. With the watermarking, though, it will be little more subtle yet detectable. Starting 2nd August, Anthropic has been putting watermarks on cloud generated content. But what exactly is it? How does it work? Who gets impacted? So let's answer a few of these questions, which are many, of course, in this video. Starting with what exactly is being watermarked? Well, everything: text, images, code, but in different ways. For text, the watermark is essentially an invisible pattern of words used in the text. The amount of watermarking will depend on the amount of work you let Cloud do in producing the text. For images and supported files, Claude will add a cryptographically signed C2PA. That's an industry standard coalition for content provenance, and authenticity. So that those C2PA tags will be added to metadata. And code, well, it will not be in the same way as in ordinary text because code is largely deterministic. It has to be precise. So there are fewer opportunities to introduce the watermark. However, comments in the code or any other arbitrary choices that Claude code has to make will carry some watermarking. Now the next question is what compelled Anthropic to do so? Well, regulations. They are the only thing matter that can compel these large behemoths. So at this time, EU AI Act, which was released in July, and it asked Anthropic and 190 other companies to sign this code of practice on transparency of AI generated content. However, Anthropic has widened its scope beyond EU. It needs to apply watermarking globally because it cannot reasonably ascertain who live in you, who lives in you, who doesn't, who uses AI features or plot features only in you, but not outside. Now, is this unique to Anthropic only? Well, no, as I said, right? There are 190 other companies. Anthropic is one of them. AI providers have signed the same code of practice and will have to implement their own approaches to marking AI generated content. So it is less of a Claude are doing so, it is more of a start of AI provenance. So, how does the text watermark actually work? Now, one thing we all know: AI generates the next word through a probabilistic system it has built from all the available content on the internet. And these models, which are trained on that content, including Claude, already makes those lots of tiny choices when finalizing the next word for you. Now, with this new watermark system, it will just add a new filter in that next word, in finalizing the next word. For this, Claude will be using Google DeepMind's SynthID technique. So every next word will be tested on the SynthID key, and the one that can build a watermarking pattern in your text will be finalized. So imagine you write, the weather today was cold and the next word. There are several perfectly reasonable next words which can fit here. Overcast, gray, and so on. Normally, without synth in between, the model uses randomness to finalize the next word. It could be overcast, it could be gray, and other time it could be something else. However, synth watermarking, Anthropic's randomness will come from this secret synth key that takes the preceding words into a consideration, right? For us human readers, the sentence looks completely normal and natural flow. The weather today was cold and overcast is as good as the weather today was cold and gray, right? No difference. Think of it as leaving a fingerprint without actually adding anything to the surface. It's like real fingerprint, right? Now the question is, how can you detect it? If you are working in audit department or as editor to your company, how do you detect it? Well, for text, Anthropic will soon release a watermark detection API, so keep an eye on it. For images and supported files, though, the C2PA metadata is already being added. So check that out using C2PA aware tools. Now, the important question, who does this matter most to? For individuals who write external facing content for living and use AI to create those drafts, outlines, or subsequently use AI to proofread and edit, they should review their content once again. Even if they are using Claude for grammar checks and sentence correction, Claude will leave these small fingerprints, subtle fingerprints. At the organizational side, it should matter to them as well, who produces external facing content for clients, consumers, or the general public, where uh, authenticity matters. They would also need to keep an eye on the content they're signing their name on, whether it has AI fingerprints also. At the same time, it would make life more difficult as well as easy for teachers, universities, and publishers who need to validate the content for which they are giving credits for human efforts. It will make easy because now they have something to authentically check where the content might have been produced from, but it is not foolproof because this watermark doesn't say if the content is AI written. It just says if Claude was likely used in writing content. How much? Difficult to say. So, what should organizations do now? Well, AI literacy is the foundation for working with AI. Being aware of what you are producing, who it is being produced for, what is being sourced from, what is the models might be trained on, how when it can hallucinate. All these things still matter, and probably they should be your top priority and continue to be your focus. Beyond that, no organization wants to be a Deloitte that was caught red-handed and had to refund $400 million to his Australian client. So have an individual or a team that is responsible for reviewing the external content before it is released. This team should keep an eye on Anthropic API release as well whenever it's launched and make it part of their toolkit. Now, of course, it is not the end of anonymous AI content, but for sure, it will add a tool to the arsenal of for people who need to identify AI content, and that's a good thing, right?